It is March 13th, 2017. This is the Watchman News, and I'm Mike Callahan. Welcome to our second hour. Got a couple things I want to discuss today on news. We're going to be talking a lot about Ferguson and in light of the new video that came out and the excuses that the prosecutor and the attorney for the market are coming up with. It's crazy. But before we get to that, I want to discuss some more craziness. I was just scrolling through Facebook earlier, and I seen Prepper Chicks. It's a Facebook group that I'm a member of. Not that I'm a chick, but it's a great group to be in. They have a lot of good information that comes out, and once in a while, just something really interesting like this. Talk about government. If I say the word overreach, I don't know if that works here. Anyway, I'll put the link down in the description of the video for all of the stuff that we go over. But here you go. Here you have it. New bill takes aim at men's masturbation habits. Wow. Okay. The story goes as Texas State Representative Jessica Farrar filed a bill last Friday that would, and I think in this case you would say the word penalize, men for unregulated masturbatory emissions. It's even hard to say. The satirical House Bill 4260 would encourage men to remain fully abstinent and only allow the occasional masturbatory emissions inside healthcare and medical facilities, which are described in the legislation as the best way to ensure men's health. So see, this is for your health, okay? Your health. Farrar said she created the bill after feeling fed up with the various legislative bills introduced by men addressing women's health care. A lot of people find this bill funny, Farrar said in a phone interview. I'm one of those people. What's not funny are the obstacles that Texas women face every day. Wow, it's a horror. It's tragic that were placed there by legislators, making it very difficult for them to access health care. A man would face a $100 penalty for each emission made outside of a vagina or medical facility. Such an emission would be considered an act against an unborn child and failing to preserve the sanctity of life, according to the legislation. Wow. Wow. The money would benefit children in the care of the Department of Family and Protective Services. Oh, well, that's not good. A registry would be created of nonprofit organizations and hospitals that provide fully abstinent encouragement counseling, supervising physicians for masturbatory emissions, and storage for the semen. Farrar is currently serving her 11th term as state representative for District 148. It's probably her last term, by the way. She works on issues that include women's health, sexual assault, reproductive rights, discrimination, juvenile justice, and domestic violence. She recently spoke out this week against the fetal remains bill, which would require hospitals to bury or cremate fetal remains, tweeting, "The fetal remains bill imposes state-sponsored moral beliefs on women, affecting their ability to make personal decisions with their doctor." Now, wait a minute here, right? So she's opposed, right, to having moral beliefs pushed on women that may affect their ability to have personal decisions with their doctor. However, she's not opposed to imposing her beliefs on a man and his relationship with himself. Her latest bill also speaks to provide men with a safe and healthy environment during vasectomies. Viagra uses colonoscopies by creating a Man's Right to Know booklet that should exactly follow the rules and procedures of the informational booklet. A woman's right to know required to be given of women terminating pregnancies. During the consultation, the physician would verbally review the booklet with men and would be required to administer a medically unnecessary digital rectal exam and magnetic resonance imaging of the rectum, according to the bill. Wait, what's that have to do with masturbation? Anyway, Farrar said she included this part of the bill to mimic the transvaginal ultrasound women have when they are seeking an abortion. She also described the doctor reading the Woman's Right to Know pamphlet as a guilt mechanism. Wow, really? It's to show how invasive this medically unnecessary procedure is, she said. When a woman has to have a transvaginal ultrasound, it has nothing to do with her health care. One of the state's objectives is to guilt her into changing her mind. A doctor would also have the right to invoke their personal, moralistic, or religious beliefs if they refuse to perform a vasectomy or prescribe Viagra. After reviewing the booklet, consent will be given to the man only after 24 hours have passed since the initial consultation. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a famous bill, tweeted Ross Ramsey, executive editor of the Texas Tribune. Reporter Teddy Wilson from the College Station tweeted, that they expertly trolled hashtag TXLedge with HB 4260, occasional masturbatory emissions. This is crazy, right? Because this is just proof how they are treating our government like it's a circus. Seriously. I mean, that's why she's doing this. She's not doing this because she's actually got a reason to do this. She's doing this to fight back against another measure that she doesn't believe in. So all this time that she's taken up proposing this and having things written up and whatnot is a waste of taxpayer money. And it's insane. But this is a good idea, though, of just how much our government can impose on our own personal lives, right? I mean, I'm not going to get into the whole Roe versus Wade and my opinion because that's not important. Again, I'm just one of 7.5 billion people on this ball of dirt. My thoughts are only important to me, and I understand that. But this is insane. It really, really is. Okay, next, I'm gonna cover something of a much, much more serious topic. And like I said, I was going to cover this last week and didn't get to it. I'll have the link for this also down in the description. It's out of USA Today, and it's titled Sex Orgies, Prostitution, Porn, Allegations Shake Catholic Church in Italy. Now, see, they've had several rounds of this, and it just doesn't seem like victims or anything ever get anywhere with any of this. It's insane. Okay, the article reads as lurid accusations of priests involved in sex orgies, porn videos, and prostitution have emerged from several parishes in Italy recently, sending shockwaves all the way to the Vatican and challenging the high standards Pope Francis demands of clergy. In the southern city of Naples, for example, a priest was recently suspended from the parish of Santa Maria degli Angeli over claims that he held gay orgies and used internet sites to recruit potential partners whom he paid for sex. The allegations concerning the Reverend Mario Di Orlando were brought to the attention of the diocese when an anonymous letter was sent to a Naples bishop. Di Orlando denied the charges when he was summoned by the city's archbishop, Cardinal Crescenzio Sepe, I think is how it's pronounced, but is now facing a formal inquiry conducted by the local church officials. Hang on, I got to pull this over here so I can see it better. In the northern city of Padua, a 48-year-old priest said Reverend Andrea Conton is facing defrocking as well as judicial proceedings amid accusations he had up to 30 lovers, some of whom he took to a swingers resort in France. Conton was removed from his parish of San Lazzaro after 3 women came forward with complaints against him in December. Bishop Claudio Cipolla of Padua cut short a visit to Latin America to deal with the scandal. I am incredulous and pained by the accusations, Cipolla said at the news conference last month. This is unacceptable behavior for a priest, a Christian, and even for a man. One woman who claims to have been Cotton's lover for more than 3 years claimed the priest carried sex toys and bondage equipment, prostituted his lovers on wife-swapping websites, and also invited other priests from the area to sex parties. Even if, at the end of this affair, there are no legal consequences, we have a duty by canon law to take disciplinary action, said Cipolla. He also revealed Pope Francis telephoned him personally at the end of January to offer his support and urge him to stay strong. Since his election, the Pope has taken a tough line on ethical behavior in the Church, though he has also recognized the reality of human imperfection and personal flaws. In recent weeks, the pontiff has spoken out many times against temptation, and last week he told a gathering of clergy at the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome that faith could not progress without the challenge of temptation. Temptation is always present in our lives. Moreover, without temptation, you cannot progress in faith, he said. Alberto Maloney, professor of church history at the University of Modena and Reggio Emilia, said there is nothing unusual about the scandals in the priesthood. There is no sin that a cleric doesn't commit. Scandals to me seem quite normal, he said. And I think the illusion of stopping scandals through better selection of personnel is not very promising and has not yielded great results. Francis has frequently called for a more rigorous screening process for seminarians and has taken direct action when scandals erupt in Italy. A case in point when reports of Playboy priests surfaced in the Italian diocese of Abinga Imperia in the northern region of Liguria in late 2014, the Pope sent a special envoy to investigate claims that clerics had posted nude photos of themselves on gay websites, sexually harassed the faithful, and stole church funds. 2 years later, the Pope replaced the leader of the diocese, Bishop Mario Oliveri. Austin Ibarre, commentator and author of The Great Reformer, Francis and the Making of a Radical Pope, said the Pope distinguished between sinfulness and corruption that was intent on rooting out corruption inside the church. The remedy for those who succumb to temptation is forgiveness and a fresh start, Ibarre said. The problem is when priests turn their back on the people, lead hidden lives, and end up justifying their conduct. That's corruption. And it's only possible in the priesthood because of clericalism. That's why the Pope is so intent on rooting it out. So anyway, once again, that is making headlines. Okay, so let's get to this about Ferguson, what I was initially wanting to speak about in this second hour. We'll start out by playing the video. Let me go ahead and bring you back over to here. And we'll start out by playing the video in question here.
One night when reading through the St. Louis County investigation papers, I stumbled along something that was absolutely stunning. At approximately 1:13 a.m., August 9th, a male arrived as a backseat passenger in a dark-colored passenger vehicle. Brown enters and exits the front doors. Michael was at the market at 1:13 a.m. the night before he died? Camera 7. The male proceeds to the beverage cooler, selected unknown items, and proceeded to the register. The male remains at the counter and eventually leaves the area of the registers with no merchandise. I couldn't believe what I had read. Michael was in the store the night before he died, and St. Louis County saw the videotape. And they didn't tell us. Well, guess what, St. Louis County? I've got the videotape.
I was surprised to hear that 2 years later, there was a video. What you're going to see on this video is what they didn't show us happen that clarifies that There was an understanding.
Yeah, there's some big claims from the movie
And
director,
that's what
but
you'll
then
want
you've
to see
also
in the
got
video.
real video from the day of
August
and the
9th,
night of,
just
which now
11
counteract what
hours
the
before
movie
Mike took his
producer
last
is
steps.
saying.
He
One of the
went to his
filmmakers
local
does say
convenience
he believes
store
the
to
footage.
make an exchange. Look carefully at the counter, and you can see a trade is made. Mike gives the store a little bag of weed. You can see the employees smelling it and passing it around.
There was some type of exchange for one thing for another. That these people know each other well enough that this is the relationship that they have.
Then you can clearly see Mike being given 2 big boxes of cigarillos. The store clerk puts the cigarillos into a bag for Mike with his other stuff and hands it over the counter. Mike is about to leave the store, but decides to have the clerk hold his things behind the counter for him. The next day, with his hands politely behind his back, Mike goes back into the store to get his stuff.
It was a misunderstanding.
St. Louis County has written documentation that we found which shows they saw the 1:13 a.m. videotape, but they leave out what really happened that night in their report. Mike traded the store a little bag of weed and got 2 boxes of cigarillos in return. He left his items at the store and he went back the next day to pick them up. Mike did not rob the store.
Yeah, there's some big claims.
Alrighty, so that is the video in question. Now I'm having a heck of a time finding the video of the prosecuting attorney, Bob McCullough. The link that I have doesn't go where it did earlier. So give me just a moment here, and I will find it. He's got kind of a shorter video. The attorney for the market in question had a bit of a longer video. So give me just a moment here. Let me make sure that I have things right. Sorry about the extra audio in that. I was trying to get stuff ready.
Last night.
Okay. So I've got the second one ready. Let me update my links here. And they're basically trying to discount absolutely everything that video you just watched contained, which I think is concerning in itself. Now I'm having an issue finding McCullough's video. Hang on here. I will find it one way or another. It seems like every way that I go with this, I do not have McCullough's video, which I find very interesting because it was laughable when he did it. Just bear me with
Yeah,
me.
there's some big claims.
Ah. All right, let's see. See if it's here on. Yep, and indeed is. Give me a moment to get that wound back up and say this link so I can give those that want to check it out themselves a proper link here. And let me get rid of the old link here. Sorry, I had all this gone through, and for some reason they took the video out. So let's go ahead and go back on over to the web browser here. And this is St. Louis prosecutor Bob McCullough.
In answer to the question, this is not new information. It's certainly not a surprise to anyone. It's certainly not relevant or material to anything that occurred, as I said, later in the day around noon at the store or shortly after that on Canfield Drive. So with that, then that's pretty much the extent. As I said, we have copies of the entire video, and I think that's very important. Number one, it's documented in the report, so it's not as though this was hidden away somewhere, as this fellow with his video project was trying to say, well, actually did say. It's documented in the police report. And if you look even at his pathetic video, it shows the police report where he got the information. So it's all there, and it's been there since since November of 2014.
All right, so you get the idea there, right? It's you know, kind of one of those "there's nothing to see here" moments. And I think those claims are pretty crazy, to be honest. I really do. That's how I feel. So what we're going to do, this is a longer video here. This is going to be the attorney of the market, okay? And he's going to try and show you that the video that Stranger Fruits had shown you was not very accurate of what really went on. So I think they're grabbing for straws here, and I think they're caught, and they know it. All right, here we go. This is what is his name here? I know it's Jay something. This, by the way, is a cut down version, obviously. Jay Kanzler, I believe is his name. Anyway, this is what he has to say and his explanation of the portion of video that Stranger Fruit had clipped out and put together.
Last night at Ferguson Market, the protesters came back out. Police officers were engaged. Police officers were hurt. Shots were fired at the market and at the police officers. My client's store was threatened to be burned to the ground, and all because some filmmaker badly edited, misedited a surveillance video so that he could get publicity for his documentary film. The film and the proposition for which he's put out there are both false. So what I'd like to do at this point is walk through some of the video, show you the distinctions between the two, and highlight those things that indicate that no drug transaction occurred that night. This is, right here, camera 6 from the surveillance video. The time at the top is 13:33, 1:34 in the morning. Michael Brown is walking into the store right here. And what I'd like you to note on this, Michael Brown has one thing in his hand. He has a piece of paper. Right? He's walking in with a piece of paper and there's nothing in the other hand. All right? Camera 7. Okay, here we go. This is a different camera angle. This is the door back here, we'll see. And we'll take it up to where Michael Brown walks into the store. There's Michael Brown walking into the store. He's carrying the piece of paper in his right hand. He's going to spend about 30 seconds here looking around for something to drink up here. In the documentary filmmaker said nothing about sodas because it doesn't fit the narrative that the cigarillos were on layaway. Michael Brown looks through this. I'm going to jump a little bit further ahead because it's to where he decides. Now, I'm going to stop right here. Michael Brown walks up to the counter. He's got 2 Vest sodas in his hand. Okay? And he's got the piece of paper also in his hand. He puts them on the counter. That's an employee next to him. The employee backs away. Now, we're going to flip to another camera angle, but what is going to occur here is about 30 or 40 seconds worth of discussion. And it's become a very heated discussion throughout. Because Michael Brown, you're going to see, is going to throw up a bag of what looks like marijuana onto the counter. And then he's going to start arguing with the clerk, because the clerk's going to tell him, no, I'm not taking marijuana. Get out of my store. So as we watch this, I'll show you the point at time which he throws that's at 15:10. Now, right now, he's asking for the cigarillos. And the clerk's bagging up the sodas, getting the cigarillos off the counter. And at 15:08, you're going to see him go to his pocket. Right there. Okay? He reaches in his pocket and he throws the bag up on the counter. Okay? It's right there at 15:09 of the tape. Now, it's going to disappear because as we'll see from the other angle, some of the clerks picked it up and wanted to see what it was. That's what you saw in the documentary. Okay? Now, what you didn't see in the documentary was all of this. This is the argument that's going on between Michael Brown and the clerks. What do you mean, you won't barter with me? What do you mean I can't trade with you? Why not? Come on, man. The language got heated and it got ugly. And that's what's going on. You can see him, his hands moving. Okay? The body language. The argument's going on. None of this is in the documentary. Okay? Still arguing. And he's going to get frustrated, and he's just going to grab the bag and he's going to walk out. Okay. Now, at this point, he's grabbed the bag right there. He hasn't paid for anything. And he's got his white piece of paper in his hand. And the marijuana or the bag is still up on the counter. Now, at this point, he's leaving. White piece of paper, bag, 2 sodas, cigarillos. Okay? The clerk's going to yell to him, hey, bring the stuff back. You didn't pay for that. Okay? Now, this is what you see in the documentary. Kind of going there, oh, I think I'll leave the cigarillos behind. I'll pick them up tomorrow morning. So you're going to see this. Oh, yeah, maybe I'll get these tomorrow morning. He stops right there in the documentary. Okay? Nothing untoward about that. What he leaves out is, okay, he puts it up and he's just grabbed the pot back. Okay? He's now got it in his hand and he's arguing. See? He's arguing with him. They're not friendly exchanges. Keep this till tomorrow morning so I can come back and get it. He's saying, come on. Now, okay, stop. Let me go back 1 second because this is important. You're going to see him walking out. Remember, he walked in with a white piece of paper in his hand. He's given the bag back. There. He's got the pot in this hand, or whatever that was, and you'll see it. His hand is clasped like that, and he's got his white piece of paper in the other hand. He is walking out of the store. You can see it. See it right there? That. He's taking what he put up onto the counter back out of the store with them. He's not a happy camper. Okay? So we're going to go to the different angle. We're going to one more time, one more angle. Okay. Now this angle is from behind the counter. You're looking out towards Michael Brown at the front. And we'll go up, and he comes to the counter at 14:40. Yeah, we're a little late. Let's go back at 14:40. It's the end of the night. The guys are ready to go home. It's 1:30 in the morning. They usually close at 1:30, but a few customers have come in, so they're hanging out, waiting. Michael Brown comes up. The first thing he does is he puts down the sodas. Okay? And the cashier going towards the cash register, and he's going to start ringing things up and putting them in bags. So as he's grabbing the sodas, he's putting them in a bag. Now at this point he says, I don't want 2 packages of cigarillos. The clerk thought he meant they come in little 2-packs. So he's going down to get the little 2-packs. It turns out he says, no, I don't want the 2-packs, I want the big boxes of them. So you're going to see him kind of go through that. Oh, no, that's not what I want. Puts them back, and he goes up and he's going to go grab the big box of the cigarillos. Okay? And that's what he's putting on the counter. And you're just about to see from this angle, there he goes. See him throw down the package of the little baggie on the, right there? Okay? Everybody? Now, yes, the guys pick it up, okay? They ask, what is that? One guy looks at it. He sniffs it. This guy comes up, says, what the heck? He sniffs it. What is it? Now, unfortunately, this is going to be a little bit, but you're going to watch as he moves across, you're going to see him put this back down onto the counter, and you're going to see his hand will be empty, and then he's going to put his hands behind his back just to kind of stand like that, and there's nothing in his hands, okay? So, he's going to put it back down, right there, and his hands are empty, okay, and he puts his hands behind his back. It's back up on the counter. Now, we can't see it because this guy's in front of it. Putting the stuff into the bag. There we go. Now this is the part you saw, just this little snippet right here in the documentary, putting the cigarillos in the bag. And then we cut away from, we never see the remainder of this. Okay? And I'm just going to kind of let this run. Look here, he's like, now he's at the register, pay me. Okay? You're going to see him kind of go, you're going to see him say, get the heck out of my store. I'm not taking that. See, get out of my store. I'm not doing that. No, okay? It's not going to happen. You're going to see Michael Brown. Now, he gets frustrated. Bam, he walks away. Okay? Nothing was exchanged. He didn't pay for the merchandise. He was angry. And now watch, he's going to say something, and everyone's going to turn and look to him because he says, hey, bring the stuff back. See? Hey, bring the stuff back. And this guy right here just told him to bring it back. He comes back. He puts it on the counter, and it's at this point that he then grabs the pot back from the counter. Okay? Now, they're going to argue about this for a little longer. Okay? He's got it in his right hand right there. See? He's arguing. What do you mean? What do you mean you won't do that? He's saying, no, I'm not going to do it. They're trying to ignore him. They're trying to be nice. And out he goes. Okay? Now, if this were a layaway, watch what the clerk gives him the kind of the wave off, probably some language. But if this were a layaway, he'd put the bag aside. Okay? Just say, put it under the counter. He's going to be back for it. See, he's kind of saying, I don't know what the... He takes that, he restocks it. He takes the 2 bottles of Vest soda, he gives it back to that guy. He goes and puts them away. And that's the transaction. Now, then he's going to go from there, and he's going to decide, you know what, I better go see what the guy was doing. He wasn't very happy with me. And there he goes. I'm going to show you one more angle, and then I'll take questions. And it's just one shot on this other angle. (1632). At 1632, you see Michael Brown leave. And you see him, he's going to be carrying the paper in one hand and the pot in the other hand. He's going to switch him into one hand so he can use the hand to open the door. right there. And then he uses that hand to open the door, and they were both in his left hand. You can see throughout the video, he came in with a white piece of paper in one hand, went to his pocket, pulled out the marijuana, and when he left the counter, he had the paper in one hand, the marijuana in the other hand, and there was no transaction. That, I dare anyone to tell me that that looked like a friendly interaction between people that knew one another and were offering to hold cigarillos till the next morning for this individual. That was a heated argument, an exchange. Numerous times you saw him tell him to get the heck out of his store. There was no exchange. And when you take all of that out, like the documentary filmmaker did, yeah, you can edit down anything. That's what you all do. You edit video. We can all make it look like something happened, and that's what the documentary filmmaker did. In fact, when you watch this all the way through, you realize that it was a much different story and nothing occurred. So, again, why the documentary filmmaker chose to do this, I have no idea. But he went out on the circuit and he made these wild allegations that have caused tremendous grief in the community, put lives at risk last night, and I think it's shameful what he's done. More importantly, he never once came, he said he spent 2 years in Ferguson making this documentary. He never once came and talked to the clerks about what happened that night. He never went through and came to me and said, because I have this, you all know where to find me. Everyone knows where to find me when it comes to Ferguson. Nobody ever sat down and said, frame by frame, what happened here?
So here's the interesting thing, okay? Hang on, let me get back, because it's going to load up another video. Okay, here's the interesting thing, okay? So the claim is the following day. Now, this is the police claim that the following day, Michael Brown returned to the store and he was involved in a strong-arm robbery of the store for those same cigarillos. Now, I kind of think that sounds odd. So, let me get this straight. He goes in the night before, tries to offer some marijuana in lieu of payment for the cigarillos and the vest sodas. And then that doesn't work out. So he leaves, disgruntled or not, doesn't much make a difference. The next day, he comes in. Now, that's the video that I seen 2 years ago, where he actually paid for the cigarillos. It was footage of him putting up money, not a white piece of paper, not a bag of weed, money. He put cash on the counter. They handed him the cigarillos. I don't think he went and got his 2 vest sodas. And as he's walking out of the store, I believe it was the store owner approached him and they got into a verbal altercation. I don't remember. I think maybe Brown might have even shoved him a little bit. But he didn't strong-arm rob them. And that's what their whole premise was. That was the whole basis of their character assassination of Michael Brown. Was because he performed a strong-arm robbery. He stole these cigarillos. And he didn't steal them. Now, the question I would ask people about the incident the following day in that same market is, was that owner approaching him, Michael Brown, because the night before he tried to barter drugs for the items? See, there's a big difference between arguing with them for trying to trade drugs for the product and strong-arm robbing them. Totally different story. Hey, I'm not saying that Michael Brown was a prince in shining armor here. I'm not saying that he's innocent of any and all things. What I'm saying is this has been a clear and a direct character assassination to sway the public's belief about Michael Brown, to try to minimize any of the damage that would likely come from the shooting of Michael Brown. See, it's like apples and oranges, and they keep distracting, and I've noticed that with this. They keep distracting. They did the same thing with Burns, Oregon. They do the same thing everywhere. You know, you didn't hear a whole lot with Eric Varner. They pretty much shoved that under the rug as quickly as they could, because everything about that murder was illegal. The chokehold, the premise behind them reacting so violently towards him. So, you know, they're trying to distract people away from the actual shooting itself. And we've all heard about how they found blood splatter inside of the police cruiser, and it was the blood of Michael Brown, and blah, 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 blah. But I'm still waiting for an explanation of how Michael Brown's body was like 20 to 30 feet away from the police cruiser, yet they claim that there was a fight between Officer Wilson and Michael Brown at the police cruiser, through the window of the door of the police cruiser. Now, this is my problem with that. Michael Brown had one entry wound in the top of his head. His body was 20 to 30 feet away from the police cruiser. So there's something that doesn't add up there. You know, can a man, especially a big, strong man like Michael Brown, can he walk 20 to 30 feet after being shot repeatedly? Sure he can, without a doubt. But can a human being, I don't care if it's Andre the Giant, can a human being walk 20 to 30 feet after taking a bullet to the top of the head? Which asks another interesting question. What superpowers did Officer Darren Wilson have that allowed him to grow, I don't know, 6-10 feet, to be able to reach up above Michael Brown and shoot him in the top of the head? You know, I don't think that we've been told the straight story through any of this. I'm not saying that there was not a struggle at the police cruiser. But by looking at the entry wounds of all the other bullets, I think it's very likely that at one point Brown was trying to run away, probably after being shot. And I think what happened is Officer Wilson kept firing shots, and eventually Michael Brown had went down, and I don't know if he was dead then, it's hard to say, but then I think that he was approached by Officer Wilson, who then shot him in the top of the head. I think he was already down. I think out of anger, and this is my opinion, just one of 7.5 billion, but I think he was down when Officer Wilson shot him execution style, so to speak, in the top of the head. Because the other interesting thing is Officer Wilson couldn't shoot worth a damn. Look at the autopsy report. You know, he was getting them in the arms and whatnot, but, you know, he was having a problem even hitting his body mass. But yet, he could get a precise shot right in the top of the head. See, that's the questions that we need to be asking. Because I agree that Strange Fruit or Stranger Fruit, I agree that in that documentary they were kind of misleading. I do think there is something here, and I think there is something to be said. But I think what needs to be said is being detracted from, and everybody's being distracted from it. But it's definitely interesting. I covered Ferguson in detail back when it was happening, and it was probably the first big story that I had covered here with the Watchman News. And there was a lot of things that didn't add up. The rioting, the looting, the rioting and the looting, to a point, I assure you, was done by not so organized individuals. But the lighting of the fires, that's a bit of a different story. That looked extremely organized. Many of those buildings that caught fire did so after the streets were already cleared out, after it was basically martial law on the streets of Ferguson. Then the fires. And I'm not talking about the one lonely Quick Trip. I'm talking about the many, many, many other businesses that burned. Those are the ones that I have questions with. Obviously the Quick Trip was looted tremendously. And there's video of that. There's video showing that. Last I knew, there's still a lot of questions about who started all of that. But when I see stuff like this, first of all, I don't see color, okay? So that's out. I don't see color. We're all human beings here. And I notice that a lot with individuals. You'll bring up Burns, Oregon, Bundy Ranch, and people are extremely understanding, but then you bring up things like Ferguson, Eric Varner, Tamir Rice, and all of a sudden they just seem to lose that understanding. And I fight very hard not to do that, because it's important. It's extremely important that we focus on truth and not feelings. That's even talked about pretty heavily in the Good Book. But I think it's something that just like Burns, just like with Lavoie, I think it's something that we shouldn't just let go and write off and shove under the rug. I think that we keep pushing the questions and pushing the questions. And that's the question that I want answered out of Ferguson. I want answered, how did Michael Brown get shot in the top of the head, and why was his body 20 to 30 feet away from the police cruiser if the struggle occurred while Officer Darren Wilson was still in the police cruiser? So that's the two big questions there. I've got many other questions when it comes to other events, especially with Lavoie Finicum, but including Eric Garner, Tamir Rice. I don't really have many questions for Trayvon Martin for that, because there's just not a lot that can be answered. You've got two people, and one is dead, and the other one was the shooter. So I doubt that there's any amount of breath in the world that's going to get that truth out necessarily. But there are cases, though, that are pretty obvious. That's just down. I think it was down in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize. But the counselor, there was an African American counselor that worked for a rehabilitation center, and he had an autistic boy that happened to have a toy truck. And And the police officers just couldn't pass up shooting. And, you know, I don't get it. I don't get it. And I see story after story after story. You know, Tamir Rice, 12-year-old boy, toy gun. I don't care how real that gun looks. You know, you don't have to fire multiple rounds at somebody to disarm them. That's my first issue. My second issue is, when it's a little child, shouldn't you at least take a second thought? How many 12-year-olds do you hear of shooting cops? I mean, I know once in a while you'll hear an accidental shooting or something. There were one child will find a weapon, and an unsecured weapon, and will be playing with it and shoot a friend or shoot a brother or sister. But I haven't heard of a 12-year-old yet shooting at a cop. So, you know, we really need to start asking questions, because this has got to stop. This is genocide. This is genocide. I guess. I don't know what word actually you want to put on it, but this is the taking of a lot of lives. And they're using "I was in fear for my life" as an excuse. You know what makes me in fear for my life? Our government. That's what makes me in fear for my life. And they expect me to reach out to them? No. I want them to go away. I really do. I really, really do. You know, again, I'm not trying to prove or disprove anything that happened in Ferguson. I just, what I take out of all of this stuff is how 2 years later they are still trying to distract us from the important questions. The ones that they refused to answer then, and they're staying far away from answering now. 2 questions. Why was Michael Brown's body 20 to 30 feet away from the car if there was a struggle at the car? And number 2, how in the hell did he get a bullet right in the top of the head? Remember, Michael Brown was a big dude. Darren Wilson, not so much. You know? I mean, did Darren Wilson jump on top of the cruiser? Or, you know? Something doesn't add up there. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Let's see. Kind of taking a peek around. We can go ahead and get to the stuff that Smitty had given me earlier. We'll go ahead and go there. Okay, this is I believe an update video from Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, of what's going on there. As you all know, I don't think we covered it because, and again, sorry, Friday my computer was just running absolutely horrible, and let's see, the Thursday night show, I recorded the second and the third hour of it, which had Smitty talking about the coffee fund, and we didn't lose that, by the way, Smitty. I have it. I have to fix the file so that I can upload it. But anyway, that is when I decided I've got to do something with this Windows installation. It was horrible. So that's why we didn't do a Friday show. Was because I was busy cussing my computer. Now this Friday there won't be a show because I'm going to be busy screaming at a concert. So, two different types of screaming there. However, we should be good to go from here on out, Monday through Friday, 5 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. This entire time that I've been doing the show, by the way, tonight, I haven't gone over 50% CPU usage. This new video broadcast software is awesome. Out of the entire show so far, I have never, YouTube on the back end has, when you're on your dashboard here, it has the, how your stream is, how your stream rate and stuff is doing. I have not been out of the green, and that is a first, an absolute first ever since I've started doing the show. So that's awesome. And I show during the entire time, I've only dropped 25 frames. That's pretty sweet. So anyway, looks like everything's on track as far as software and all that. Got a good, strong internet connection, just as good as what we had before. So we ought to be good on all those counts. So anyway, let's go ahead and let me bring this up into view here. A little bitty, almost 6-minute video that was uploaded, and I believe this is going to be an update on the trial in Nevada.
The courtroom is almost full on the inside. That's really exciting. We've got some from Idaho and some from Minnesota. We have a group from Minnesota and some from Idaho. I'm sorry that I said Missouri. I'm sorry. So last Thursday we ended the day. After the jury left, we had some arguing over Dan Love and whether he will be able to testify. And now the prosecution isn't going to call him, and the judge said that the defense was going to have to come up with a good reason for them to call him, that basically they couldn't just call a witness to perjure him. And I know that the prosecution had come to the defense the night before and said, whatever video, whatever it is that you want in, we'll let it in, no questions asked, you know, that you were going to bring in with Dan Love. And then the very next day in court, they have to come up with reasons to bring him in. So the defense will have to work on that. I don't know when we will know the answer. So we started today out, it was a late day. We were supposed to start at 10:30, but we probably didn't start till almost 11. Big news, Myri was not in the courtroom. She joined us later. So Myri is not in the courtroom today, and I think that'll definitely be something. We had Major Jackson on the stand. He was a Nevada Highway Patrol officer. We were in the middle of cross-examining him. He was brought up a couple times about the fact that they were communicating with the crowd as a way to keep the stress levels down. At one point, he was asked by Marchese, you started that you were trying to find water and that his men didn't prepare. He was asked if the protesters had given him water, and it was yes. And then it was brought up that the entire environment had caused the fear, not necessarily just one element of the environment. Todd Engel went up and was asked about the trucks. In his direct examination, that there were 4 trucks that pulled out of the desert with men in the back of them, and he felt much fear, and this was after everything was done. These men came out from the east, got on the northbound, and went north. And he was asked if he'd had videos of these truck and these men. The answer was no, because there's a lot of video. And there was no arrest of these men. He was also brought up that no one arrested the men carrying weapons on the bridge, and he was asked why, if he felt so threatened by these men, they were not arrested. In court said they have a right to carry firearms. So that was exciting. And then he stated that he needed hundreds of officers to help this end peacefully. And the guy said, well, yeah, if by force we would have needed 500 more officers. And then he was asked if the event ended peacefully. It did. That no rocks or frozen bottles were thrown at them, no tear gas was used or riot shields, no patrol cars burned, and this is all email, so he did a great job today. Then they called Sergeant Shannon Serena. He is another, he arrived, they bring up trucks as he's driving down, they're playing his dash cam, they bring up trucks as they're going by, some with the tailgate down and the window up and people sitting back there, they're bringing up all of these things. We're still watching his videos. In one of his videos you see a bunch of people like it's just the truck, and then a bunch of people start running and go over. There's people that run and jump over the barrier and go down, and that's pretty much all we're watching. Then they bring out another person's dash cam, and in this dash cam you can see the officer, and in that he says that there's an armed guy that looks at him and comes towards him and now is threatening, and the person starts talking to him and points down in the wash. Then he states that the guy told him there was a green truck, and it got confusing in the courtroom. It sounded like a green truck of protesters pointing weapons at officers. But then they are trying to point out that it's Todd Engel, and his truck is the green truck of the Forest Service and the people that are glassing the protesters. So I'm sure that will come up in cross-examination, but we're still in direct examination of this individual. And we're going back up. It was a short morning before lunch, so we'll have a lot more later. Once again, amazing. Minnesota, people from Idaho. There is a lot of people down here today. A lot of those people came and actually went up there, so that was really nice to see like all 3 rows almost full. It's the first time it's ever happened up here, so thank everybody for traveling. Like some of these people travel hours. I know a lot of the Bundy family travel 2 hours here. They do it once a week, almost daily sometimes.
Thank you.
Good.
Thanks.
All right.
Back this afternoon, folks. Yep, we'll be.
Alrighty. Not so quick on the button, not using the mixer for my audio. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and play from last Friday. I'm going to go ahead and play John Lamb's verdict video. For those that have not heard it and don't know. Now this is the case with Jason Patrick, Dwayne Immer, and Jake Ryan, and this is the verdict from their cases.
Conspiracy, guilty firearms.
What? So I'm gonna let you go,
Jason,
man.
guilty conspiracy, not guilty firearms.
Okay, thanks.
Jason guilty of conspiracy, huh?
Yes.
He was
Okay, thanks.
Bundy after.
Okay, can you?
He was being sarcastic or funny.
So what was it again, sir?
I didn't mean that.
So it is Dwayne Emer, not guilty conspiracy, guilty depredation of government property. Jake Ryan, not guilty firearms, guilty depredation of government property. Daryl Thorne, guilty of conspiracy, guilty of firearms in a federal facility. Jason Patrick, guilty of conspiracy, not guilty of firearms in a federal facility.
So
Jason Patrick.
That's it.
Jason,
That's it.
you get your name?
Ryan has it. I work for OPZ.
Spell it first and last.
RYANHAAS.
can you read those one more time for us, please? I'm sorry.
Yes. Hold on. My colleague found it again. Sorry, it'll take me a second.
No, that's just what they said. It wasn't really. It'll come out the way. It was just kind of
I know he wasn't, David. I'm asking what the verdict for.
So if you want, if you go to Conrad Wilson on Twitter, he just tweeted a whole verdict sheet, so it's easy to see.
Can you just say the full conspiracy
Sure.
charges?
So for the conspiracy, it was Jason and Daryl were guilty of conspiracy. Yeah. So Dwayne guilty of conspiracy.
They came after the fact.
Anything else?
That's good. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Or no agreement.
Yeah, on Twitter, Conrad Wilson.
No agreement.
Yep.
acquits anybody. Oh, I think it was a difficult situation for these defendants because all the additional time between the fall and now was contribute to the government refining their presentation, limiting evidence and figuring out ways to change the case. And I think the dynamic in the room without Emmett changed. And so I think that the result ends up being a different one. But again, not surprising. This is the government's house. They don't lose in this building. And so the fact that they lost the first time made it that much more important and compelling. And that's why, despite a $12 million law enforcement response, they were nothing more than convictions on misdemeanors. And I don't know, to what extent the firearms convictions, those weren't an issue in the trial that we had last fall. And so I don't know to what extent that ended up being an important factor in how the jury viewed the evidence generally in this case. But at the end of the day, the people that engaged in this protest are people that are committed to a certain sense of justice. And the conviction in this matter is one that they can accept as a consequence of civil disobedience, of a desire to bring attention to issues that are important, largely ignored by people in the cities. And so, I just talked to Jason Patrick, and he was convicted, I think, of a conspiracy count.
Yes,
and his reaction to that is one of respect and acceptance. There's frustration, obviously, on one hand. On the other hand, they knew going into this that there was a risk that these things would occur. So, the consequences of those are one that they're willing to bear. And that certainly was Mr. Medenbach's position throughout litigation when we were involved. And so I respect that about these defendants. Single one of them would say, they did this because they wanted to gain something personally from their participation. It just wasn't about that. And so it's a very unique case in that respect.
Do you think people can see this as justice since sort of Emmett Bundy and the leaders of the occupation were acquitted on these charges and lesser players have now been
Of course not.
convicted on
No, of course not. It's been a failure all the way along. It was a failure beginning on January 3rd when the federal government failed to take responsibility for enforcing the law and responding to this kind of activity at the first instance. And so, this verdict today is not a vindication of anything about the underlying circumstances. It does nothing to address the underlying issues that led to these individuals being charged in the first place and how all of this came about. And so I think that, hopefully as the hysteria subsides, a real taste in our country about what's going to happen in communities like Burns in the future. And how it is that when the government controls all this land, people can still work and function in these rural communities. None of that has changed. And nothing about this prosecution does anything more than to support the idea that, if you want to live in a rural community, for the government.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Matt.
Where do I go from here? Well, for me, I just happened to be here today. So I was representing someone from another case, and I ran into one of the FBI agents.
Do you feel comfortable talking on the camera? No? Okay. You want to talk on the camera? Not right now? Okay.
The city guy and the city
Okay. Well, come over here. I'll get Maureen too. Hey, Maureen. Oh, there she goes.
Ma'am, she doesn't want to be bothered.
Okay. Yeah, go with her. Stick with her.
You too.
What's that? No, not yet. None of them yet. You want to come over here and talk a minute? Okay. Okay, everybody. We're going to ask Kristen. She was sitting there in the courtroom.
I'm gonna wear my Lavoie hat.
Okay. Get you a quick little update here. of what she's seen in the courtroom.
It's heartbreaking. We were praying so hard. There was a lightheartedness before the verdict. We were all bracing ourselves, praying. Our Father, and when there was given an individual verdict, I just didn't feel like this. I mean, I didn't feel like the jury had the right information. They were.
So most people don't know what the verdicts are yet. Some of them are still asking. A lot of people asking yet.
Jason got conspiracy.
Jason was found guilty
for one.
Of one, okay.
Conspiracy, and then we need to pray for him. And Daryl Thorne got the worst. He got 1 and 2 counts.
Okay.
Conspiracy, and then the other one was the intent to do damage upon and prevent people from. And then Jake, he didn't get anything but the number 7. And so I don't.
Jake Ryan was found not guilty.
All the way till
Jake Ryan's not guilty. Everybody.
But count 7, he was found guilty.
Okay.
Right. And then Dwayne was not found guilty either, except for
count 6 and count 7.
6.
Okay.
And 7. So we have a varied verdict, and thank God at least nobody got the run of the mill kind of verdict.
Yes.
But it was heartbreaking, and we know that the jury had requested the transcript of the actual court case, and they were denied it. There's security cameras all the time up there, and they are recording every word in that jury, and so it wasn't available to the jury to be able to review. They were the judge said no, and so did the defense. I mean, not the defense. The government said no. We don't have a record. We sure did have a security camera on, and we also had somebody who was, stenographer was taking it down, and then they were denied that for days. They said, well, we don't know when it'll be available. It'll take days for us to get that. So, in expediency's sake, the jury went ahead and did what they did, the information that they requested day 1, which was they requested some kind of recording so they could review the facts. That was the request, and they were denied it. And I have a problem with that.
Yes. We
shouldn't be casting a verdict without full knowledge and being able to review. And the judge had said to you, and just go over your notes and your memory. Well, we do know that people come in, whether they try to or not, they have bias. And just hearing that, one of the jury members had a problem with us being violent or mean. Do I look violent or mean? I don't know who she was talking to. So I'm just hoping that Daryl, that we pray for Daryl Thorne. He got the worst end of the deal. And also for Jason. He got. It's just, to me, the judge saying, I was there in court, and she called them through the court, and then at the very end said, alleged co-conspirator. I believe that kind of...
biased.
Yeah, bias was already in the court. So that's my opinion. I saw it with my own eyes, and I heard it with my own eyes, and I even have it word for word. Oh, my favorite part was the end of, I think it was Friday, that the judge had said, okay, I'm going to clean this up first, and then I'm going to let you back in. What does that mean? Well, I heard what it meant. It meant she was preventing people from having full testimony. That's what I heard. I heard that she was listening to testimony from the defense and saying, no, you can't be heard. No, this is not her agenda. Or
We've got 4 reporters here, and I'm wondering who you are.
I'm just a little person. My name's Kristen.
K-R-I-S-T-I-N?
K-R-I-S-T-E-N. I have, I was actually a scribe in a sense. I just wrote down everything, Thomas.
T-H-O-M-A-S?
Yes.
Where are you
from? Oregon, Central Oregon. I prefer not to,
So how are you connected to this?
Well, I wasn't there, and I learned about it. I'm just one of the people that have been observing, and I didn't even know much about grazing rights until Lavoie was shot and murdered. From a commercial fishing background, OFF, from Florida, and when I started hearing the similarities of what my own family went through, I started to investigate. Where the Fish and Wildlife used to pull my father over in the boat, and harass him, and now it's illegal to be a commercial fisherman in Florida with a net. And that's a different story, but the same story. We're putting our food producers out of business. And where are we going to get our food? The fish that's caught in Florida is not from Florida. If it is caught, a sportsman fisherman catching it. But the commercial fishing industry is over with. It's working on the nets agenda. And here we are.
Your reaction to this?
Well, my reaction is the same reaction I had. My gut it tells me that the jury has been denied a lot of the facts. That's my reaction. Being there and physically in the court and seeing the films that the defense had, they weren't allowed to show. Or certain individuals that were physically there were not allowed to be heard. I have a problem with that because it didn't fit the agenda. Am I alone here? I have described, I've written what was being said, and I know other people did too. The fact that the jury was denied access to the facts, the recording of the actual court is ridiculous because we know there's security cameras in there. We know they could have had that. They just wanted to review facts. And I don't believe that the verdict was given. I really don't.
So as you can tell, we're disappointed in the verdict down here today. We definitely wasn't expecting it to come out the way it did. So Jake Ryan's not guilty of conspiracy. If you didn't get all that, so Jake Ryan's not guilty of conspiracy. Dwayne Emmer's not guilty of conspiracy. But Jason Patrick and Daryl Thorne are both. They've been found guilty of conspiracy. Dwayne Emmer were both found guilty of count 6 and 7. That's for digging the trench that they both dug, but all other charges they were found not guilty on. The gun charges against Jason Patrick, I do not think, it sounds like he did not get the conspiracy charge only, and it sounds like Daryl Thorne, they found him guilty on all the charges. So, as we were just hearing there, it sounded like he got the worst deal of all of them. But definitely Daryl Thorne and Jason Patrick need our prayers. They have not come out of the courtroom. Last time they were out in moments, but right now I'm not for sure exactly what's going on with them up there. But it's definitely a hard moment right now for everybody down here. So that's kind of so everybody is just possibly getting on here. Daryl Thorne was found guilty of conspiracy in all the charges. Jake Ryan was found not guilty of the conspiracy charges, along with Dwayne Emmer, and only found guilty on the digging the trenches. BJ, I don't know if they took him into custody at the moment. Out of the courtroom except for them at the moment. So all the media that were in there are all down here, but the 4 defendants have not came out of the courtroom at all at this point. So we're not exactly for sure what's happening with them at the moment. The verdicts were split. We're found guilty of the conspiracy charges, and Daryl Thorne, as they were just reporting there, got the worst end of the deal of all of it. He was found guilty on looks like all charges. And but Jake Ryan and Dwayne Emmer were found not guilty on the conspiracy part of the charges. So just on count 6, Ryan and Dwayne Emmer were charged with. Those were the digging of the trenches. So that's what we have to report to you right now. I'll probably go live a couple of more times a day, especially if they come out of the courtroom. So far, the defendants I have not. So hopefully we'll have you some more updates shortly. So that's all I have right now for you. Keep praying for us down here. Keep praying for the Nevada people. God bless, and we'll try to keep you updated just shortly again. Thank you.
What's going on there? That video was shot last Friday. I didn't get a chance to show it to you guys, so there it is. Okay. let's see. I'm going to take a look to see if there's, is there anything anybody wants me to go over? Let's see. I know I had those 2 articles. Let me take a peek over in chat here. I still have to juggle through a ton of windows, so it's been real nice. So if the mixer software was one I didn't have to toggle through, but it is what it is. Oh, okay. Let me 1 second. I have to get that brought up in its own window there to
Got your frog?
keep the
Got your frog?
no, don't stop.
Got your frog?
Me and well, anyway, here is the video Smitty was talking about. I don't know what'll happen if I go full screen, but we'll see.
Got your frog? Got your frog? That your birthday frog? You ain't tearing it up, are you? Huh? What are you doing? You're on my bed. Don't be tearing him up. You got this thing tore off of here already. That was supposed to be sewn to that arm. You silly boy. What are you doing? Huh? Did you enjoy the snow today? Did you enjoy the snow? You love your rides? Yeah. About dropped your frog, didn't you? What are you doing on my bed besides messing it up? Huh? You want some? Sure. You want some bacon? Stay there. I don't know about you. I don't know about you. You messed up my bed.
That's awesome. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything interesting that came out since I started the show. There's a an interesting boat. I should say that the boat has an interesting name. Its mission. We can check that out. It's from RT here. Bodie McBoatface sets off for Antarctica maiden voyage, met with mixed reactions. Bodie McBoatface, so called because of an online poll conducted last year, is the Antarctica, and the internet isn't quite sure what to make of it. The British National Environment Research Council, NERC, sought the world's help last March in naming its brand new $290 million scientific research vessel. The public voted to call it Bodie McBoatface. Despite Bodie McBoatface receiving 27,000 votes, 3,000 more than the RRS Henry Worsley after the British explorer, the council decided against using either name, opting instead to call the exploratory vessel after veteran naturalist and However, in a bid to placate detractors, 3 unmanned submersible vessels will share the name Bodie McBoatface. The vessel is part of the high-tech repository at the disposal of the ocean scientists from the University of Southampton and the British Antarctic Survey, who set sail for an assessment of water flow and underwater turbulence in the Orkney Passage, a vast area in Antarctica's southern ocean, a mind-boggling 3,500 miles deep. Naturally, news of Bodie McBoatface's voyage caused furor online. But yeah, it's kind of cool what it's going to be checking out. It's going to check out I seen an article earlier today that it's going to be checking out the ocean currents because they relate those to our weather currents. So, and I know that there has been with the weather currents as we see from time to time. I haven't actually went here in a little bit. Let's pull this up. Over modulating. Okay, let me pull my mic down a little bit. Okay, so the last time I looked at this, I was actually in a conversation with a lady by the name of Ginger Booth. She's an author. And I was showing her the lack of currency, actual page itself. Here we go. Zoom in here. And you will see that did it right after I changed. See, I'm not seeing anything on this end whatsoever as far as an issue. That's weird. Hopefully it straightens out. It must be an internet issue because that's an issue as far as the broadcasting equipment. So everything looks smooth. That's weird. It's got to be something to do with the connection, I would think. So anyway, what you have on your screen there is a total lack of a jet stream, which would normally go from the west coast here to the east coast. It would be a pretty steady stream. Really interesting. And with all the weather that's going on now, I find the wind map that we're looking at very interesting. There, of course, is no Gulf Airstream, which travels up the east coast, but instead, nowhere, an unbelievable amount of winds. I mean, it's not like hurricane force or nothing, but I mean, going into the east coast. Now, here's the interesting thing. As soon as they hit the coast, they're gone. That's definitely interesting wind current. Very interesting. That's just like down here in the Gulf. You notice, there's not a lot over the landmass here, but the moment you get past the landmass and you're over the water, it's just interesting stuff that I've been paying attention to, and I brought it to the attention of Ginger Booth, and something that I keep an eye on. I haven't, like I say, I haven't looked at this for probably about 2 or 3 weeks, but definitely interesting stuff. Do I sound scattered? Huh. Yeah, it must be something via internet. I'll dig into it later. So anyway, I wanted to check out the Earth wind map because that's close attention to, along with everything else in the world. So other than my scattery audio, does anybody have anything they want to look into, want to know about? I'm watching. I was going to have you switch over to Wi-Fi. All right, sorry, I was just on the computer trying to hear it. I think it's something to do with with the internet because I don't have that on this site at all. Actually, looks real good. All the peaks, everything looked good. And let me bring my Google search up on the screen here. I searched PBS bacteria strain immunity to antibiotics. Now, this is something that I've been hearing about here lately is the antibiotic resistance. But if you see a link, let me know. I've got PBS Evolution Library, Evolution of Antibiotic Resistance, End of Antibiotic Resistance, four strategies could turn the tide, and Survival Microbe Crop. Did you send the article to Jen or something? Which one is it, Smitty? The second one or the, Okay. Thank you, sir. Alright. I will read it. Read it in it. Link in the description of the video, so. It's titled Beyond Antibiotics. Or antibiotics. Late on the night of December 26, just 3 days after I'd given birth to my son and 2 days after receiving 2 blood transfusions for complications, this time I'd gone straight to the emergency room. There we were, me, my days-old baby, and my husband. The ER doctors put us in a separate room to try to isolate us from the contagion filling the hospital floor. But a few hours in, my husband started vomiting. He was asked to leave if he did not wish to stay with me. It was dangerous just having him there. I was alone. I had left the hospital with my baby on Christmas Day as best I can recall. The discharge nurses had instructed me to call back if I developed a fever over 101 degrees. The day I checked into the ER, our thermometer had just read. The doctors knew I had recently been in the hospital and they knew I had lost a lot of blood, but they had no idea which bacteria strain was causing the fever, so they hedged their bets, giving me 2 different antibiotics, one for MRSA, is what it's known as, a common antibiotic-resistant strain of staph bacteria, called E. coli. When my hospital roommate heard I was on a drug for MRSA, she requested to be moved. I lay in bed alone, ordered hospital food, and pumped tainted breast milk. In the days that followed, I started eating ice in the hopes that I would trick the nurse's thermometer and they would let me go. The low-grade fever would keep me in the hospital for twice as long as my massive blood loss did following birth. My 2 hospital stays illustrate how the script for medical care has flipped over the last several decades. In many ways, a hospital-acquired infection has become more serious than an uncontrolled bleed. Multi-drug resistance and our last best strategies are failing. You may have heard the rumblings. Doctors have been warned not to overprescribe antibiotics. Consumers have been admonished against the antibacterial soaps and creams. We can now buy meat and dairy marked animals not treated with antibiotics, or those measures are only stopgaps. They will only, perhaps, slow the pace of resistance. For years, researchers and doctors have known this. Responsible antibiotic use isn't enough to win the pathogen war. It reflects an alarming lack of respect for the incredible power of infectious disease experts from across the U.S. in a 2008 call to action paper. After all, they write, microbes have been evolving and adapting for 3.5 billion years. Thanks to their combination of genetic plasticity and rapid generation time, they can undergo as many as one of ours. They are especially good at overcoming evolutionary obstacles. Antibiotic resistance is just another byproduct of those abilities. It has evolved because patients don't complete a full course of drugs, or because animals receive drugs they don't really need, or because antibacterial spray. Antibiotics kill the most, but not all of the bacteria they encounter. The strongest ones live. These reproduce and pass on their advantages, and sometimes they get together and swap genes. Eventually, the resistant types grow very, very resistant. You want something interesting, pick up a can of Lysol and look at the dangers on the back of it. It will say harmful to humans and domestic animals. I don't want Lysol even in my home. Anyway, resistance faster than we are able to respond. The new antibiotics are difficult to produce, and they don't make as much profit as drugs for chronic disease, so there has been a dearth of investment. Why it feels like it's happening right now is that there aren't really any new antibiotics coming down the pipeline. The biologist who works for the nonprofit National Resources Defense Council, we don't really have a plan B. 3 years ago, science journalist Marin McKenna published an award-winning article in which she imagines a modern environment devoid of antibiotics. It's a return to the tuberculosis, pneumonia, and meningitis or death sentences. It would mean that burn victims, surgery patients, laboring mothers, and those undergoing chemotherapy would have to worry constantly about succumbing to infection. President Barack Obama has called antibiotic resistance one of the world today. A conservative estimate from a British project called the Review on Antimicrobial Resistance states that if left unchecked, antibiotic resistance will cause 10 million human deaths per year, more than the number of people who currently died from cancer and diabetes combined. Last year, researchers identified bacteria resistant to a last resort antibiotic in Chinese raw chicken and pork meat, slaughterhouse pigs, and hospital patients. The resistant gene has since been identified in bacteria across Asia and Europe. But we are fighting back. President dollars over 5 years for developing new diagnostic tools, creating a database of antibiotic-resistant diseases, and funding research to better understand drug resistance. It joins other ongoing efforts to identify promising new candidates in labs and universities around identifying, testing, and perfecting strategies that go well beyond what today we call antibiotics. Let's see, we used to think that bacteria were dumb. We thought they ate, pooped, divided, and not much else. We now know that this story is much too simple. Bacteria respond and react. They ask how many others are around and how they are doing, and only when a certain number have congregated to do most pathogenic bacteria turn virulent. The danger is in numbers. Of course, sometimes they gain the upper hand despite our best to hide them from one another. We could shut down their party before it starts. That's the idea behind quorum sensing inhibitors. Quorum sensing inhibitors are molecules designed to interfere with pathogen communication. When bacteria go looking for friends, they put out small. For the past 2 decades, researchers have been working to develop strategies that interfere with every step of the process by halting production of these flags, obscuring them so that other bacteria cannot recognize them, or blocking responses when they are recognized. The results so far have been promising. Researcher at the Institute of Genomics? I think it's genomics. Anyway, in integrative biology in Delhi, I think it is, India, such quorum sensing inhibitors are less likely to lead to bacterial resistance because their survival is under threat. QSIs are not threatening their existence and survival. Several of these inhibitors have been shown to reduce violence in animals, Kalia said, and 2 have made it to clinical trials. Still, none are currently used to treat human disease. Bacteria to develop resistance to inhibitors. It is not impossible. In fact, it may already be happening. In a 2014 paper in the journal Microbial Ecology, Kalia and his colleagues write that evidence is accumulating that the bacteria may develop resistance to QSIs to bacteria that have different channels. If one path is blocked, they try to use another. Apparently, the researchers write, bacteria do not even need to undergo any genetic change to withstand quorum-sensing inhibitors. QSIs may buy us some time. Other options. The development of new antibiotics has often relied on tweaking existing drugs. It's a simpler approach than developing an entirely new class of antibiotics, but the modifications are often small enough that bacteria can adapt relatively easily. Fortunately, microbes have been building it long before we arrived, and they have evolved a few good tricks. One antimicrobial peptides were first identified in silk moss and are now known to be an innate immune response in almost all organisms from our AMPs use differences between the membranes of a host cell and a bacteria to selectively target only the harmful microbe invader. Bacteria tend to be negatively charged, while mammalian cells tend to be neutral. The positively charged controls in it. Rather than having to recognize specific targets on the cell membrane, as traditional antibiotics do, AMPs grab any bacterial membrane that doesn't belong and shoot it full of holes. Wow, little robot bacterial attackers, huh? No, they're not robots. I'm just bacterial adaptations. Despite their ancient origins, AMPs remain effective weapons today. Bacteria can become resistant to antibiotics by simple modifications of the receptor where the drug attacks. To be resistant to AMPs, they need to change their entire membrane chemistry, says Karen junior research group leader working on AMPs at the University of Freiburg in Germany. Could you imagine, though? Could you imagine if those AMPs somehow got messed up? Right now, researchers are working on making materials that have synthetic versions of AMPs or SAMPs on the surface. These specially engineered surfaces help reduce microbe contamination on hospital equipment, in the air, and on clothing. Specifically, they form protectiveness around themselves. Biofilms are the root of all evil, Leenkamp says. Studies with regular antibiotics have shown that you need up to 1,000 times the concentration to kill bacteria that are encapsulated in a biofilm. Other strategies to prevent bacteria from taking up residence are materials that shed layers to prevent buildup. Yet as promising as they are, anti-fouling surfaces are only useful for prevention. They won't help someone who already has a rampant infection. What we really need are ways to identify what ails us and quickly with customizable drugs to treat them. Justin O'Grady is a lecturer in medical biology at the University of East Anglia in the United Kingdom. Last year, he and others published a paper in the journal Natural Biotechnology about a technology that can take a sample of blood and in 6 to 8 hours identify the bacteria that is causing an infection. Typically takes 2 to 5 days. The device is a gene sequencer called a mini-ion, which reads the bacteria's genetic signature within minutes. It's small enough to plug into a computer's USB drive, and at around $1,000 for the necessary equipment, it doesn't sequencers. Moreover, the device, when given any other day to so process the sample, can also identify which genes in an invading bacteria are responsible for the antibiotic resistance. This would be a personalized medicine. While other molecular identification technologies exist, sequencing technologies like the mini-ion are broad-spectrum microdetectors. The advantage of sequencing for this approach is that you don't need to know anything about what pathogen might be in there. If something like mini-ion had been available when I was in the hospital, my experience would probably have been quite different. It wouldn't have taken doctors 5 days to determine the root of the cause, getting me home sooner and saving both the hospital and the also would not have been administered ineffective antibiotics, preventing a small amount of evolved resistance. Instead of doctors treating their patients with best guess antibiotics while they wait days for culture results to come back, sequencing technologies like these will tell them what is going on by the time the nurse comes away that we prescribe antibiotics. We can improve antibiotic stewardship, and we can improve patient management at the same time. The patient receives better treatment quicker, and society benefits because we keep our potent antibiotics for those who need them most. Let's see. The most promising new antibiotics may, counterintuitively, come from the bacterial domain itself. Though nature's bacterial library could hold a multitude of undiscovered antibiotic recipes, sifting through its diversity is a daunting task. Most bacteria found in the petri dish in traditional cell culture. We may soon be able to unlock that library, though, thanks to the work of Kim Lewis, director of the Antimicrobial Discovery Center at Northeastern University in Boston. Lewis reported last year in the journal Nature that he and his colleagues found a way to cultivate the growing lab because they rely on signals and molecules from neighboring bacteria to grow. Lewis and his colleagues decided that rather than to try painstakingly recreate those conditions, they would just bring a little soil back to the lab. They started by collecting a small scoop of soil, rinsing it in water, putting the mixture into a device they developed called the eye chip. They then placed the eye chip into a bucket of the same soil kept in the lab. After a month, they pulled the eye chip out, cultured the bacteria, and observed what was growing. The bacteria were still growing in agar, not their ideal environment. 10% of uncultured bacteria from the natural environment require growth factors from neighboring bacteria, Lewis says. Their soil vacation seems to make the bacteria stronger, more adaptable, and more likely to grow in the eye chip. Eager to build their library, Lewis and his colleagues were given a sample. One collaborator took a serendipitous trip. Did I say that wrong? Serendipitous? Okay, serendipitous. I was corrected. Trip to Maine and returned with a completely new gene. One that produced an incredible, effective antibiotic that kills other types of bacteria, which they named Teixobactin. Something like that. In experiments with human cells and in mice, Teixobactin proved exceptionally effective in killing, playing a role on Harry Potter or something, a resistant bacteria that causes ulcers and is most effectively treated with fecal transplants. What? I don't want a fecal transplant, thank you. And Staphylococcus aureus, resistant Teixobactin must complete many hurdles before it can become a drug offered in the doctor's office. It will need to be formulated to remain active inside the human body. Toxicology tests will need to ensure that it does not contain other medicines it may interact with. Lewis is working with a company to improve the Teixobactin solubility. Wow. And he estimates that it will take 2 years to get the clinical trials, which will then take at least another 3 years. So even in the best case scenario, Teixobactin will not survive 5 years. Wow, I wonder why. Let's see here. There's not a whole lot I can change on my end. Let me take, wow, okay. Let me know how this goes. That's weird. Let's see, where was I? Okay, I think I was up here. Developed to prevent, fight, and treat antibiotic-resistant diseases. Bacteria targeting viruses, gene editing, nanoparticles, and shotgun-like strategies use multiple drugs are all brimming with potential. Let me know if that sounds better. Let's see. But each of these needs time. Time for we want to trust that our current technology common sense prevention provides the window we need. Please, everyone wash your hands. As for my brush, with an antibiotic-resistant infection, I eventually returned home to my husband and children. On the 5th day, lab results revealed why the drugs were not working. The strain I had was resistant to the drug they were giving me. Neither of the antibiotics was having any effect. The doctors had made their best guesses, but those guesses had been wrong. The hospital let me leave with new antibiotic and a tube inserted into a vein close to my heart. Don't get her online, or that could kill you too. To say I was careful is an understatement. 3 times a day I fed my newborn, put him down to sleep, and followed the hour-long procedure. Years of work in a nanotech laboratory had taught me how to be meticulous. After 2 minutes of work, bacteria acquired at the hospital had not evolved resistance to every weapon in our arsenal. At least, not yet. And there you go. I will have the system all changed over to just the virtual mixer, though. I'll be taking out the physical mixer. So, and when I do that, I will. So what I hear in my headphones might be different than what you're hearing. I figured it out 20 minutes before the show that if I turn up my my micro, this is without a microphone attached. Can't hear that. Okay. You guys can't hear that. It's real loud buzz though if I turn my mic up on the mixing board. Let's see. Kind of taking a looking around, seeing, making sure there's nothing too crazy. I'm not seeing really anything more. Let's see. I only show a couple minutes left anyway. Again, like I have been, I'm gonna get the video straightened out tomorrow, and might even work on that a little bit yet tonight. So, but at least as far as the streaming part of it, wow, did I go down for a moment? Because it's tough. At least I stayed in the green the entire time. Let's see here. To go through everything with the internet too and make sure that it's good to go. So, okay, folks. Well, I think I am going to get off of here for the night, and I will start looking into these audio issues. And hopefully tomorrow, I do have to run 2 different softwares just to put the news ticker down at the bottom. Now I can do it all within one program. And like I say, I haven't even hit 50% of my CPU, which is awesome. That is really good, which tells me that I would have planned to. So just have some time to work it all out. So I've got a really nice, what they call a lower third, which is where the news ticker will run. I've got a really, really nice turning earth that I want to put in there. It's really high, have a chance to work with all that. So, with that, we will be back tomorrow, guys. Thank you all for coming. God bless you all. We love you all. Be one with your spirit. And you all have a good night. See you tomorrow at 5.